Hey everyone, this is a quick sound test of the Keebwerk Tacit switch to accompany my written review for the Tacit switch. I am going to be comparing the Tacit switch to Zeal Zilent switches here. The Tacit switch has a 67-gram spring, whereas my Zeal Zilents have a 65-gram spring. So they are slightly different, but for all other factors, they're pretty comparable. So first things first, let's take a look at the housing here. Just want to show how much movement there is in the housing. You can see the top housing kind of moving against the bottom housing, and this causes a lot of sound to be produced. Like many Duroc switches, they really benefit from switch films to tighten that up. The Zilent switches don't really have any movement. One thing that is interesting to notice is the stem wobble. There's quite a bit on the Zilents. You can see the stem moving around. I'm not really applying any pressure, not really pushing down on the spring at all. The Tacit switches, on the other hand, have very little stem wobble. As soon as you're pressing, you're basically applying pressure on the spring directly. There's no extra play. Okay, so I'm going to be comparing, I have a stock Tacit switch and stock Zilent switch here. I've also got some lubed and filmed switches that I'm just going to be comparing against. It's also, as a bit of an aside, I have Thicc films installed in these two switches with Thicc films installed in these two switches. I wanted to see if there was any measurable difference between the different film types. Okay, so up first, we have the stock switches here with the Zilents in the top row and the Tacits in the bottom row. So stock, these two columns are both lubed with Tribosys 3203, and the springs are lubed with Krytox 106. In the second column, the switches have the Thicc films, and in the third last column here, the switches have Thicc films. So I'll do a comparison across the Zilents and then across the Tacits, and then comparing one against each type. So we'll start with the Zilents here. Okay, so that was the Zilents, and now the Tacit. Okay, and now just going to go Zilent, Tacit, Zilent, Tacit, Zilent, and Tacit. So again, these are the stock switches here. Then the switches with the Thicc films. And lastly, the switches with the Thicc films. All right, I will have a link to my review in the description below, so you can check that out and get a more detailed description of what I think of the Tacit switch.